So my name is Alex Arnold. I am the executive consultant for the Taos Institute, and I welcome you all today for a Pulsating Practices, our free webinar series, and we're here to talk about hopeful futures in education today. So just to introduce the Taos Institute for a moment, we are a nonprofit educational organization, entirely virtual, and we promote social constructionist, relational, and appreciative ideas and practices. We do so with many different resources. So we have workshops and courses, we have free webinars like this one, we have a series of free downloadable books in our WorldShare Books series. You can find them on our website. And most recently, although it's already been over 2 years, we have an online community, the Taos Institute Commons, where we have now over 2,500 people from all over the globe who are joining us and connecting with each other and accessing all of these resources. So if you haven't joined our online community yet, we invite you to do so. And let's get started. So I will introduce Ken Gergen, co-founder and president of the Taos Institute. And Ken, if you want to take it from here and introduce our host today.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. First of all, I have to apologize for my appearance. I don't want to draw away from Loek's presentation, but just to be sure that everything is okay, I want to assure you that I'm not dodging bullets from the administration here of our government for things I have said about our government, but perhaps they should be hunting for me. In any case, look, it's a great privilege to be able to introduce you today. I've known your work for almost 20 years now, and I was drawn to it because of the absolutely stunning innovation you would undertaken in Suriname. I mean, gone into that country, as I understood it, and innovated with a discussion of the whole. It has got the country involved with a dialogue about education, and out of that built the educational system. It was just marvelous work, and by the way, that came out as a book, which we give away on our WorldShare Books program. That's www.worldsharebooks.net. It's called Happily Different: Sustainable Education, a Relational Approach. And it's just marvelous. It still remains, for me, a major work in giving a sort of a model of a way to create sustainable education. Loek is now the head of research at Kempel College of Education in the Netherlands. He has had many other roles over the years as an educator. I won't recite them all, but we are also very fortunate to have him now on the board of the Taos Institute. He's been just an incredible resource for that institute. And in some ways, I'm going to say just an incredible resource altogether. I know very few people with Loek's energy, his creativity, his ability to balance multiple projects going on simultaneously. It's just wonderful to be associated with you. I also want to say that if you want to find out more about some of these projects, go to his website. It's called appreciativechangeworks.nl, and maybe you could put that in the chat. So in any case, look, wonderful to have you here on Pulsating Practices. I look forward.
Thank you, Ken. Well, thank you for your kind words. Well, welcome, audience, people from all around the world. It's I think it's also present that I can tell about my experiences and my adventures when we talk about social construction and relational work. And as Ken was talking about, well, it's almost more than 40 years that I'm working in education in many roles. So I think what I like about my own work, when I may say this, is that I can combine practical experience with the academic knowledge and put this into practice. And that's what I want to do today with you this evening in the Netherlands, is that I want to show you a lot of images about how it looks like when we apply social construction into educational change processes. And I will do that with some slides, with some activities. We have some moments to go out in the breakout rooms to talk with each other and to connect. We have some group dialogues, and Ken, I was preparing this session, and well, I have so many examples that it was the biggest challenge was, what shall I take for this evening? So I will put a focus on the I Believe in You process in Suriname, South America. Then I will talk about some very practical and concrete activities you can do with people to invite them to make the change. And then from this, we go into these breakout rooms and have a group discussion. And then we will see this evening if time is left. And when time is left, we can talk further about educational change and social construction. So thank you for being here this evening. And let's first start with the first question. And you can use the chat box for this. So my question to all of you is, perhaps you can put your name in the chat box and where you are, from which country you are, and give an answer to the following question. The question is, what do you think is the point of relational processes in education, in educational research, or in change? So what do you think is the point or the essence of relational processes in education, research, or change? So please put your name in the chat box and your answer and your country, then we are getting to know each other a little bit. Thank you. I give you a minute for this. Let's see what's coming out of this. And while you're doing this, putting some answers in the chat box, well, one of the most important insights is when I work also in Suriname, but also presently, is the assumption that we are all experts. So people could say, well, you are in education for 40 years, you have an academic title, so you are the expert, so you will know all the answers. That's totally not how I work. So my start is always the not knowing stance. I know nothing. Well, I know a little bit, and perhaps I know a little bit more from some aspects, and you know perhaps a little bit more about your own situation or education. And when we could share this, then we could use this to create new knowledge. So that's a good starting point, being not the expert, but treating and inviting all people in education or in the change process as all being experts in the process. And it's my personal experience that age doesn't matter. I was also a primary school teacher, also kindergarten teacher. And I asked my children aged 5 and 6 also to be the expert many years ago. But I also asked teachers and other people to be experts and parents. So meanwhile, there are interesting answers coming up in the chat box. People from all around the world. Great. Let's see what's written here. Pedro, he's telling, I think the point is to connect with our human side. I think that's very important. So when I talk about educational change based on social construction, then I think it's about centralizing human beings, relational process as the start, but also as the heartbone of the process. And often we forget this, and I will talk about this. So please put your answers in the box, and meanwhile I will share my PowerPoint slides and show you some video clips and images about educational change. Let's see if I can share my PowerPoint. Yeah, everything's working. So I will talk a little bit about my experiences. And after this, we will have this breakout rooms and this groups discussion. So when we talk about educational change, and well, it's also where Ken is writing about in his book, Invitation to Social Construction. then I still think after 40 years, sometimes we still can see this, how can you say it, this way of organizing education as we have done it for more than 100 years. And this next video clip from Pink Floyd, I think tells enough. It's a metaphor of how we often organize or look at education.
Certain teachers who would hurt the children any way they could. We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. All in all, it's just another brick in.
You don't eat your meat. You can't have any pudding. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? You, yes, you, laddie. Poems, everybody. The laddie who makes himself a poem.
Well, just a short piece of Pink Floyd. I think the whole song takes more than 6 minutes, I think. And perhaps it's a little bit perhaps too black and white image of education, because I think in the Netherlands there are many developments in improving education. But then still, I think when we look very carefully to the educational system, then we can still see some elements which are still present in today's education. And that's not in a way totally wrong, I think. So social construction is not talking about what is right and what is wrong, but it's more talking about how can we look at our reality, and how are we making our reality, and can we also make alternative realities. And what you see in this image is that you see that 100 years ago, when there was this industrial revolution in the Western world, then it was very important that people could organize a system which could educate millions of people, thousands of people. But meanwhile, society and the world has changed. So I think there's a different need in organizing education. And I think social construction could be very helpful, that's my experience, to make this change. So what we are talking about when we look at this common way of looking at education is that we could see it as what you saw in the video clip, education organized as a machine, and the human being is part of that machine. It's not centralized, the human being is part of the machine. So we can fix teachers, we can replace teachers, we can move children to special schools, etc., etc. Still, it's not wrong, but it's a way of doing, it's a way of making education. And in this way of thinking, we still think that we can make change, we can produce change, we can plan it, we can control it, we can test it. And mostly a few experts know the most, and a few leaders make decision. I know that this is a black and white story perhaps, but still we can see these elements in education. And when we talk about social construction, then you could say, well, let's focus not on the individual, but let's focus on the relational processes, because it's human beings who create organizations like education. And perhaps it's not a machine we are looking at, but more an organism that changes and that's dynamic and that's moving in time and moving with the people in their own context, based on their own history, based on their own culture, but also based on their wishes for the future. So then you could say organizations are made by human beings. Change is dynamic. It's not always predictable, not always makeable, not totally controllable. And what I start with this evening is we are all experts. And decision making, it would be great when more decision making would be made by people together and not only by a few leaders. That doesn't mean that it's wrong when a leader makes a decision, but you could move a little bit more to this more leaderful practices, I think. So the focus on relational processes is what me inspires every day when I'm working in education. And I think we should rehumanize our educational system. Not only the educational system, but also change and research processes. Switching from the individual to the relational. And I'm very proud for the Dutch audience to tell you that the end of the month, our Dutch translation from Invitation to Social Construction from Kent Gergen will be published in the Netherlands. Sponsored by Campbell Hogeschool, the institute where I'm working with. And the aim is to come a little bit closer to the Dutch-speaking audience, to make it more, how do you say it, that people can approach social construction and understand it more in their own language. So very important in the social constructionist way of looking at reality is that people create reality by using language, by interacting with each other. And it's through these relational processes that we create the world in which we work and live in. So also this counts for the educational system. And Sheila McNamee, she's talking about joint action and the in-between. And I think that's very inspirational, because mostly we think that learning happens in the individual head, and the teacher teaches and the child is learning. And sometimes still we think that's how we should teach and that's how children learn. But meanwhile, I'm very convinced, and also based on social construction, that perhaps learning is happening between people. When children, pupils, students, people are interacting with each other, giving and making meaning to their own reality and realities they experience. So meaning is neither mine or yours, but it emerges out of our relational engagement. And all these things are very important, because when I'm talking about the I believe in you process, then all these elements of social construction came into life when I was working in South America. Some years ago, I was living there with my young family, and I was the coordinator of the countrywide change process, the wish of the country to change the educational system and to adapt it more to the Surinamese context, because Suriname for many years has been part of the Netherlands, a colony. And of course, the colony decided what had to be taught in schools, and they were talking about mills and the wooden shoes and the dikes, you know, and the North Sea. And of course, when you're living in South America, and you can see it in this image, there is no North Sea. There are no mills, and there's a jungle, a very beautiful jungle. So of course, this educational system was not working for many children. So they asked me, can you come and work with us together? And I started with this starting point that, well, who am I? I am not from your country. I'm not the expert, but you are all experts from your own country, your own context, but also you know what you wish. So I started to work with them in appreciative ways, inviting them to be part of their own change process, not my change process, their own change process. And in the end, we called this process the I believe in you process, because I think when you really believe in children or students, when you really think they need the best for the future, then I think we will do the best. It's not only about talking, It's also about doing things.
Een
So when I was there, I started to make a movie, and I didn't know what I would do with it. But I was thinking when I would film the whole process afterwards, I could not film it. So I started from the first moment to make video clips. I could hire a movie maker, and in the end, we had constructed a real documentary about this whole process. So when you are interested, please send an email, then I can send you the whole video clip. But I think it's good to see how a social constructionist change process looks like. And I took 2 minutes out of 2 years of innovation. So enjoy it.
nieuwsgierige zoektocht werd opgestart. Op zoek naar positieve ervaringen, ideeën, wensen en dromen die leven bij mensen. De technieken van Appreciative Inquiry, ontwikkeld vanuit Canada, vormden de basis voor de vele workshops in de districten. Samen zoeken naar dat wat leven geeft in onderwijs, in ontwikkeling, in leren. Met grote inzet van alle districtscommissarissen en de onderwijsinspecteurs werden in alle districten een variëteit van mensen met verschillende maatschappelijke achtergronden uitgenodigd. Het resultaat was verbluffend. Mensen raakten enthousiast, energie werd opgewekt. Ze raakten niet uitgepraat over hun persoonlijke positieve ervaringen. Heel gastvrij werd de initiatiefgroep ontvangen door de districtscommissarissen. Unaniem deden ze allen mee. Hun adviezen waren waardevol in het proces, vooral in de logistieke aanpak van de workshops die in de districten zouden plaatsvinden. Boten die gecharterd moesten worden en tonnen olie. Nieuwe nucleuscentra, die net geopend waren, mochten gebruikt worden. Ruimtes voor trainingen werden beschikbaar gesteld. De trainers hadden er zin in. Ze waaierden uit over het gehele land, van Paramaribo tot Nikeri en van Kommerwijnen tot Sipaliwini. Per auto, busje, per vliegtuig, taxi of eigen vervoer gingen ze goed voorbereid. Ze wisten de mensen enthousiast te maken met hun eigen aanpak. Het effect was veelal dat het smaakt naar meer. Het vuur was aangewakkerd in de districten en daar was het ook om te doen. Ruim 350 deelnemers uit het gehele land namen deel. Leerkrachten, schoolleiders, studenten, inspecteurs, bestuursleden, directeuren van stichtingen en NGO's, marktverkopers, ambtenaren, counselors en kapiteins.
Just a short clip, and when I look at this I've seen this for many times, I think I could talk for years, I think, about all kinds of experiences, which happens when you are inviting people, evaluating, appreciating people's voice into a change process. And many unforeseen things have happened. Perhaps I can show you a little bit later one of these magic moments. It's still thrilling when you see when people are excited, that people are very willing to contribute also to the change process. What I want to ask you is to take your pencils and to make some notes, and perhaps you are already doing this. But while I'm telling about social construction and educational change, perhaps there are some insights or some recognition about own experiences. Please write them down, because we will need them when we go into our breakout rooms when I finish this first part of this session. So please make notes so that you can share your wisdom, your knowledge with other people. So this is just a short image about social construction in Suriname. And the magic thing was that I was starting as one person, not knowing anybody in the country. And then very quickly, the next week, the next month, 5 people joined, 10 people joined, 50 people joined, 100 people joined. And in the end, more than 10,000 people were joining this process and were willing and very highly motivated to contribute. But the situation was not easy at all. I will tell a little bit about it. So when we talk about the I Believe in You process, I talk about the process of developing a collective vision about primary education, which took more than 2 years. Before these 2 years, we had 1 year of connecting and talking with people about their present experiences about education. And then we talked about what do you wish and what do you want. And that was also the starting point of I Believe in You. So we took 2 years to really write the vision of primary school education, because I was thinking, when we co-construct a vision together based on dreams and hopes for their own children, for their future, for their country, for the world, then there's a high chance that when we would implement this vision, it would be carried and supported by all these people, of course. So we invited all kinds of people of the system, varying from the Minister of Education to the parent in the deep, deep jungle area, the child, the teachers, and so on. So we were really working at many levels at the same time. So when we talk about Suriname, South America, then, well, it's a very special country, a very beautiful country, and only 500,000 people are living there. A lot of people from Suriname live in the Netherlands because they have also roots there, and there's a strong connection between the families living in the Netherlands and, of course, living in Suriname. What also is very interesting is that almost 40% of the people are younger than 18 years old. So it's a very young population. So that also tells us about the need and the urgency to create education which is meaningful for the youth, of course, because they are the future. The economical situation is not good at all. Also not when I was working there. So you can imagine that when you, as a teacher, need 4 jobs to pay for your living, then of course you are exhausted at the end of the day, and perhaps also not always motivated to work on innovation. I would have the same, I think, when I would have worked from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the evening, making a lot of concerns about living, children, payments, and things like that. So it was not at all a very easy situation. Another difficulty was that the brain drain. So because of the better payment in other countries like the Netherlands, such as the Netherlands, a lot of people who had expertise left the country. So the people who are working in the ministry departments are just a few who need to do a lot. So it was always balancing in the time people had to support this process. But then again, I experienced when it became their process, there was no question about supporting. They just supported the situation. So it was not really an easy context. But I was thinking, in every situation, there's hope. There's a crack in the mirror where there's some light coming in. So I was thinking, let's look for the light in the country, because we can talk for ages about the problems and the negative situation, but we can also look for hope, for possibilities and opportunities. That's why I used appreciative inquiry as one of the most important approaches in this process. It was very necessary, because when we looked at the ciphers of education, then I could almost cry, I think. So more than 40%, almost a half of the students, need more than 7 years to finish primary school education. There's a very high percentage of repeaters, children who again and again repeat the first class when they are 7 years old. And meanwhile, there are 12 sitting with children of 6 in the same classroom, having bad teaching, bad lessons, no good materials. And of course, then the dropout ciphers are also high. So there was a lot of reason to work on a positive way of making a strong educational system based on the Surinamese context, but mostly based on the dreams of the Suriname people themselves. So I think educational change, the most important thing is being in relation. It's human work by people, for people, but people should also benefit from education. And then we should make from students, children, teachers, producers, instead of only consumers of the system. And that was what I did in Suriname. So we are almost coming to the breakout rooms. I did a lot of talking, I think, for the first part of this session. And I want to tell a little bit about some insights of the process, and you can use these insights shortly to talk in your breakout rooms about your insights. So what I discovered in the I Believe process is that we can approach change as an unfolding process, not as a planned journey, a planned trip, but as an unfolding story, because we all the time invite people to make reality, to interact with each other, to collaborate with each other, and not always is clear or set what is coming out. So we should be open for the things which are unfolding. And while the process is unfolding, like a book I'm writing, new insights will come, and I can use and pick these insights to make together new decisions how to move on in the process. That's what happened. That also asks for a dynamic way of leadership. So not a leader who is saying we should do this, but more a leader who is open for the ideas of people and the wishes, and is trying to use these ideas to strengthen the change process. So I have this image from the chameleon. I don't know if you say it like this in English. We all know this animal who can adapt his colors. It depends on the context where he or she lives. And I think that's also what we should do in these change processes when we base them on social construction. Because when we can change our colors and adapt them to the colors of needs in the situation, then people feel seen, people feel heard, and people feel appreciated, that we are using their needs and wishes to build this change process. And then motivation and ownership will come out as a product of this process. What I also did was focusing on possibilities, focusing on opportunities, because the narrative in Suriname was negative about education. It's bad, it's wrong, it's frustrating, it's negative, it's a lot of dropouts, etc., etc. We don't have support. And of course, that was the reality. So I didn't say that it didn't exist, but I tried to change the story, the narrative into, but what do you need? How can we make things possible? What are your experiences in the past when you had this good education? What can we use from this to build again our new way of looking at education? And of course, using different language makes different stories, makes different change processes. So what social construction says is words create worlds. So we can create new futures by using new stories. And when we make them together, of course, then these are our own collective stories. And when people believe in it, they will start to move in that positive direction. I will pick out two of them in this list. I think careful questioning and listening is very important. And it doesn't mean that when I listen to you, that I'm checking if what you are telling, if it's right or wrong with my opinion, because that's not careful listening. Careful listening means I can put my thoughts and my assumptions and the things I think, I can put them on a parking place just for a moment, and then come back to you in a more open mind, a more curious mind, and to talk about what your story is and what your wishes are, and not use them to see if they are right or wrong, but just listen to it and try to understand how people are looking at their own reality. That was very important because I was not a member of Suriname. And I don't know their culture, of course. There are 8 cultures in Suriname. And of course, they know the best how their culture is. So, well, in a way, it's more easy when we would listen to the people, because then they give you information and images about what they want and what they want to do. So these are some insights of the I Believe in You process. And when we summarize them, I did do this in the book Happily Different, which Ken was mentioning. Then I think 4 key elements were very important in this process. So one was appreciation. I was telling that I use appreciative inquiry as an approach to organize this process. And sometimes people misunderstand appreciation because they think, oh, it's all about the positive things, it's friendly, it's making us happy and things like that. But I see appreciation more as appreciating every different voice, the critical voice, the negative voice, the positive voice, the strange voice. So invite all these voices, and when people are feeling safe to share them, then it helps me to have a more holistic view of reality than when I only would listen to a few voices I would like to listen to. So appreciation means appreciate the differences, because in the end we are all different. So why not use this difference? That's what I did in this Surinamese change process. And what then happens is that people are appreciated, valued, listened to, and heard to. When people are connecting, then we are building relationships. I would call it building bridges. And when people are building bridges, then we are building like a spider net, a web. So when I started with 3 people, we had a web with 3 people. But in the end, with 10,000 people, we had an enormous spider web built. And when there was a problem, it was not long a problem anymore, because I could use the web, the spider web, so to say, to ask people for help. So you saw in the video clip boats which were on the river in the deep jungle of Suriname, and we needed petrol, and we needed money, we needed boats. I didn't know how to get them, but meanwhile I knew in the web, somebody in this huge web will know the answer. And when I was asking this question in the big web of more than 10,000 people, I think within 1 hour, we had finished, we had solved the problem. There were boats, there was petrol, there was money, and people could move into all the districts of Suriname to work in this change process. What's very important to end this is that we need to feed this process. So I think it's not a process in which you think, well, let's just start a change process and see what happens. I think we need to coordinate it. We need to coordinate it with people together, but also we need to feed it. We need to feed these relationships. And I think collaborative practices, working together, and also dialogical practices, talking in, as Sheila McNamee mentions it, in different ways, in more connective ways, helps to build these relationships and to make this spider web very strong. So I will skip these slides for a moment. Expanding the web is very important, because when you expand the web with all these people willing to contribute to the change process, then also the opportunity that we will find more solutions will grow. And that's also what happened in the I Believe in You process. Let's see. So I will keep this for after the breakout rooms, because I think you have listened now for just a while. And I would like to ask Alex to make some breakout rooms. And I want to give you the following task in the breakout rooms is, of course, to connect with each other, to tell, of course, who you are and what your interests are, and then find some time to discuss what your own experiences are, applying appreciation, connecting activities like working together or dialogical practices, because you also are experts. And I think it's very interesting when you can share your own experiences with this or with the insights I just talked about. So soon you will be put in breakout rooms for, I think, let's say 10 minutes. And after that, I will show you some images again, how it looks like when people are really getting into connection with each other. So have fun and see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Everyone is back. Good to see you back. That's good news, I think. I was just talking to Alex and Ken that there are so many things to talk about when you talk about social construction and relational change. And perhaps you have the same experience that when you are talking about these things, and perhaps you have never heard about social construction, that was my experience many years ago. Then I was thinking, well, I'm already doing all kinds of things like this. The good news was that when I was stepping into Taos Institute and learning more about social construction, I could give it more language to it. So perhaps you recognize a lot of things I was talking about. So what we shall do is just have a little group discussion, and then I want to move on with some very practical activities to inspire you in how to invite people in many forms of collaboration or dialogue. So let's enjoy our group discussion. I'm very curious what you talked about, or what perhaps new questions or insights came into your discussion. Who wants to share this? Who's the first one? Evie, I see that you put your hand.
Yes,
You put
it
your
was
microphone open? Okay.
it was very nice to meet each other in a short time
Mhm.
and curious. We all the people in the room were curious to each other, and we found out that relationships making takes time. Dus the time we had was too short to all examples to
Yeah.
give.
To exchange all the examples. Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you, Evie. And I know you're also a great person, knowing your work in your schools, being also a relational person. Well, who is not a relational person? But I recognize many things in your work in connecting with people and making good education. So thank you for this. Yes, I think the time is too short, of course. And of course, we want to make you a little bit curious about each other and join next conversations, or perhaps we can meet after this session at another moment. There's also an email Alex will send. So this is not just one moment. Yeah. So thank you. So yes, it takes time to get into connection. But I also at the same time have the experience when I'm working with bullying situation in villages where people are very angry, that very quickly, in spite of their angriness, I can bring them into the first connection again, which could be the starting point for longer connections. But we need to feed these processes again and again and again. And when I talk about the, I believe, process in Suriname, which started in 2006, it's now 2025. Meanwhile, 7 ministers of education have sometimes polluted the change process, which was very positive, just because they were against, but just because they were from another political party, just because they know nothing. And that was not always easy. So there were also some step backs, of course, because it was not only the success story, but that's how things happen. The good news is that one of the advisors in 2007, his name is Henry Ori, last year became the Minister of Education in Suriname. And he asked me to come back, and we organized a dialogical conference and invited 400 people from all kinds of places of Suriname and all kinds of expertises to refuel the I Believe in You process. And the good news is that what I experience is that when people have had this positive connective experience, then it's very easy when we support them to restart again. So suddenly there was trust and there was hope, and many things at this moment are happening again. So of course the process has step backs, and that's, I think, how things in relationships sometimes go. So thank you for sharing, Evie. Are there other thoughts or inspirations or questions you want to share? Yes, David? please open your microphone. You're unmuted.
Yeah, actually, I have started just towards the end of last year to work with a local school. They had problems with kids who were withdrawn in class or who were having some other learning problems. And okay, myself, I've just read about narrative therapy and social constructionism. So when engaging with the learners, I found that there was a bullying practice in the school. The teachers were not aware, the parents were not aware, and even the parents at times they were absent from home because they work far away from the school, and the poor kid will be with the other siblings who were not helpful and who could not intervene when in case of bullying. And also the policy of the education, which is still transformative out of apartheid mold, is that now the negative part, the learners must not be failed. And you find that the learners, because of age now, they are just pushed. And even if they were not achieving, but they would be pushed into the next class. And when they reach higher grades, there's a big problem and they drop out. And also now the drug problem is creeping in. So through, I can say for now, I've seen appreciation and connections being able to lead us to understand the actual problems of the learners. The only thing is that it's still a short period, and I'm doing this out of the school system. And together with the school, they don't have similar programs. So it is something that is not effective. And sometime next week on the 10th, I've been invited to another secondary school to come and talk about drugs and so on. But I think the idea of I believe in you, if it can be introduced and discussed, it could break some of the problems that the school is facing right now. Thanks.
Yes, well, thank
and
you.
I would like to hear more about I believe. And if there's a literature or website, I'll go into it. Thanks.
Okay. Just send an email. Thank you, David, for sharing. Just a short comment on this. I agree with Ken, who's writing about education in his book, Invitation to Social Construction, is that when we make or organize school systems where we still not use differences as opportunities, but try to work with competition, work with who's the best, who is the weakest, who do we call special, and then we mean that special means that you have shortcomings. It's not about talents, I think. So I think as long as we organize our educational system based on an individual orientation, then this feeds also the process of being alienated or being excluded, because I think we would organize or construct very different educational systems when we would put relational processes as the starting point and basic fundament of organizing our organize. And again, it's my experience with helping in bullying situations that when we use relational processes and we try to reconnect with all people in the system of bullying, then suddenly we will find different solutions. And then the chance or the opportunity of having a more sustainable solution, is my experience, will grow. So there are many things we can do differently by using social construction. Let's move to Wendy. I see your hand, Wendy. Thank you, Wendy.
May I just add to that?
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, Ken?
Yes, just a small note.
Oh,
because
yes, correct.
so much in the middle of it, and that is the problem of using assessment technique, grades, and testing
Yeah. Mhm.
as the measure of education or the measure of learning. Because if you use grades and testing, you already create a system in the classroom where differences are going to be negative. I don't evaluate you well because you don't make good grades, or I evaluate myself very well because I do make good grades.
True.
We shun those who don't, they drop out,
Yeah.
and you set up a competition. So your fundamental relationship is a competition. Yes, you're going to get all sorts of problems, and which I've documented in a book called Beyond the Tyranny of Testing.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'd love to hear Bjorn Hauger speak to some of these issues too, because he has developed a whole set of practices that he uses and the Norwegian systems on just these kinds of problems. But
That's great to
sometime,
invite
Bjorn.
you. Yeah, yeah. So I think you're right. So also for the audience, I think it's very important not to think in ways of right and wrong, but more to be conscious about what we are creating and if what we are creating is helpful or not. So testing in some ways could perhaps be okay, you know. But I think sometimes in this educational world, it's so common to test that we don't think anymore about if the testing is helpful, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just the way we are doing this. And I think social construction helps us to rethink these things, not at the first place saying this is wrong, but is this helping? Is this supporting the learning process of children in this case? So thank you for this extra contribution. Wendy.
Yes, thank you. I very much appreciate and enjoying hearing about your work.
You.
One of the things that just occurred to me, I work in several different contexts, and obviously the opportunities are different in the various
Yeah. Places.
contexts.
Yeah.
But one of the things that just occurred to me is that when you embrace an I believe in you relational approach,
Mhm.
you're also implicitly endorsing a sense of personal agency.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the contexts I work in is a rather large healthcare system.
Mhm.
And my husband he says I'm the systems shrink. Everybody calls me when they're upset about something. And but one of the things that they're most upset about when people are having rub with their jobs or their responsibilities or so on within healthcare are things that they have absolutely no ability to influence,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but when you work in a more relational, psychologically safe space,
Mhm.
people, it just flows. You have agency because you're focused on things, on having your voice, as you said, being
Yeah.
heard, seen,
True.
and appreciated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, that's a great tonic.
That's true. That's true. And sometimes I tell people it's so simple, you know. Let's ask people. Let's ask what they think is okay. And that doesn't mean that I agree to everything,
Right.
but let's first listen to it. And then together we can decide if what we think about or what you think is helpful or not, you know. And then people are willing to change the way they are thinking, but just invite them. That's the first start, but not as a technique, what some people do, you know. Some people, they invite people to talk with them, and then people think, well, I have influence, and then in the end, they don't have. And of course, then they are not motivated in helping anymore. And then people don't understand why are they not willing, you know? So I think it's a way of being, I think. It's a way of authentic being that you're really, really, really interested in the other person. And I think like little children, I taught many years ago, they can read you as a book, but also adults, they can read you as a book if you are with them or not with them, like also the people in Suriname. And I think that's very important, I think. That's where connection starts, I think. So thank you, Wendy. I see Nick with a...
Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I need to unmute. I am fairly hopeful. There is I don't know if you may have, some of you would have come across it, but there is a school system which seems to work because it's every child is a unique individual because this is Sudbury Valley School in the States. Sudbury Valley School has no curriculum and no exams. So children's learning is entirely driven by their own curiosity.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely blown away when I learned about this some years ago. 80% of the students coming out at the end decide they want to go to college. Nearly all of them go to college of their first choice, because if you've been passionate about music or art or science, and you've taken the opportunity to study it because you've been completely free to make your own choices about your own how you spend your own time. I mean, completely free. Then you're going to be rather good at it at the end. And it's extraordinary, the stories they tell. Like, they've never had a single case of anybody with dyslexia in the school in 50 years. And that's because children will choose to read when they're ready.
Yeah.
And some children read at 4 and some at 10, because they find their peers are enjoying it and they want to do the same.
Yeah.
And so, and there are other examples.
Yeah.
So I'm just, it feels like that's very, very relational, in the sense that the children have influence on what they do every day, rather than children being like, as in your picture, just like being passive units.
Yeah, that's true. That's what we are talking about. So we could talk more in depth about this, but seeing the time, I thank you for this contribution. We
Can
also
I
have
ask, Nick, where is that school? There are several Sudbury schools in the United States.
The one I'm talking about is when I read about it in Framingham in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts, okay. Cunningham, okay.
Yeah. And there's a school on similar lines actually in Russia, strangely, in the Black Sea, which is near the Black Sea, called the Kin School, which is worth investigating too.
That's great. Yes, there are many examples suiting this relational ideas. We also have these schools in the Netherlands, and you see a very different educational process, learning process happening in these schools. So, yes, thank you for sharing. Bjorn, I saw also your hand, or is it away now?
Yes, I don't know if it's time.
Well, we have 1 minute, and then I want to tell a little bit about some activities. So shortly, I picked some of them out of it, but just also to appreciate your voice.
Thank you. Just one small comment, because I've been working with using also appreciative inquiry in school systems. And one of the things I've learned, got inspired from that, is we have worked together with all the teachers in some schools, and they have learned and use appreciative inquiry into the classroom, working with the children and involving all the children to make the class the situation for learning, where all the children have the possibility to have their own voices. And this work is led by a vision and future forming research. So we made this vision for the society, and we involved all the parents, all the children, involving in making the future together. So it's a long training and cultural process. So I've been working with in Norway and inspired from Ken Gergensen, future forming research.
Yes, thank you for sharing, and please send me an email to connect and to talk further about this. I'm very curious. So thank you. Yes, so it shows that when we change our mindset, then when we change our stories and we are working together, then many things are possible in different ways than we are used to. And I think when we focus on what's good for everyone, well, that's very hopeful for our future, and especially for education, I think. I want to finish with, let's say 7 minutes, just to show you some activities about how you can invite people. And who knows, we can have a second seminar at another time, but then I can give you some things to perhaps which are useful in your own practice. So I will open my my PowerPoint again to show you some images, because that tells more than just the words, I think. So I'm going to share again. Well, here it comes. Let's see, just a little bit of movement in Suriname, just to sense a little bit what people are doing when they are connecting and when they are feeling well and happy together. What you see is that a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking with each other, a lot of talk with people who didn't know each other before. This lady is telling some positive compliments about her leader in the Department of School Advisory. A little bit clapping. An activity in which people in groups were telling the best speech of education to the audience. The press conference, we taped and recorded it because for our future leaders. Just a few images. Let's have 3 activities I will choose, seeing the time also, which are very practical. Let's see. Sorry, many things I prepared. So, okay. Okay, sorry for this. You see people connecting in the exercise with ropes. Could be a check-in, or it could be during the session, and they had just a heap of ropes in many forms, and they had to make a spider web. And of course, they start to talk with each other, to connect, etc., etc. And then you see that they are building just a spider web. And then the second question was build a strong spider web. Because in the first session, they had a lot of colors, thin ropes and thick ropes and all kinds of ropes. And then they had to combine the same color in the same color spider webs. And then they saw that suddenly there were 5 spider webs in the rooms, which we sometimes also see when we are working with teams. So it makes some things clear about working in relational ways. Just to explain in a very short way now at this moment. Lunch moments to talk about educational change, because people start to talk in different ways when you organize a different context. Like in Suriname, eating together is very important, but I did also the same in the Netherlands. People connect with each other, eat, and talk about important topics in education. People like to do games, like this one, just showing him. Just as a little intermezzo, but then of course afterwards we talked about what has happened and could together. Let's try to move on with this. Let's do it like this. So, am I still sharing?
No, we can't see your screen anymore.
Is it again?
Back. Yeah.
A very simple exercise, teams giving compliments to each other, writing it on the backs of on their backs with hearts. Everyone is active, everyone is happy, and then of course afterwards they could read their own hearts, and we could share again how important it is to look at qualities and the good parts of every person instead of only focusing on the negative parts. It was a great exercise. When we talk about all our experts, I experimented with little boards. You can see drawing boards. And the people were making metaphors, drawings, based on the question or based on the topic. And then they started to exchange with each other. And then suddenly all the people were into dialogue with each other without calling it a discussion. It gave a lot of fun. And then we used all these boards to make a gallery walk, to look at these boards and talk again about educational change. And in this team, they were talking about social climate. How can we improve social climate? This was something I invented when I was working with people. Sometimes I invent in the moment an activity which I have never done. So I was noticing that these people were very active the whole day. And this was the second day, I think, in the morning. And then I decided, well, let's have an activity. So mostly we talk gossip in negative ways to each other. So I asked them talk positive gossips about these training days. And they were really engaged in this exercise. And when you look at the expression at the pictures, they were really pretending if they were talking gossips to each other. So we were talking gossips about the positive things, but we also had great fun about doing this. And then after this 5 minutes it took, we had this group session to talk about the positive things which have happened in these training days. They liked it a lot. Inviting diversity. It was last week I was working with my network of Taos Institute in the Netherlands. And I knew that these people didn't know each other. But I also knew that there was a lot of knowledge and wisdom in the room. So I decided to make a human library. So I asked all the people to draw the cover of a book, their own book, with their most inspirational knowledge or experience or whatever they had. And then they draw covers. I used the 3 colors. And this, you see a green and a red. I think also had a blue one. It were, I think, 35 people. So we had 3 colors. So then I could say, well, we have all drawn this cover in 5 minutes. We have the first round. So you can rent a book, a personal life book. And this first round, you can only rent the green books. So then suddenly people were renting books in which they were interested, getting to know each other. And then after 15 minutes, we stopped this. It was very difficult to stop. Then we had the orange books. They could rent the orange books. And so we did it 3 times. And then, well, people were interested in each other, but most of all, they could make their own decision in what book to choose. It was really a great experience, I think. And you can combine this with your topic, of course. It could be social climate. It could be some aspects in the change process. It could be anything, I think. Last tip, when you go to the internet, you can go to Liberating Structures. These are 33 proven, effective, multi-perspective activities to invite every voice in the room. And I can send the PowerPoint after we have finished this webinar. But there are 33 structures. That's why it's called Liberating Structures. And liberating means have a free voice. And there's also a book from this. One of the activities is the 1, 2 for all. So then people are in the room. You can do it with 50 people or with 300 people. There is a topic. And 1 means that every single person has a post-it and writes down his knowledge or questions about the topic. And you give them then 1 or 2 minutes for doing so. And after 2 minutes, we change the room. Then we say, well, make a pair of 2. That's the 1, 2 for all. And then they find another person, share their post-its, and make 1 post-it from their both experiences or insights written down on the post-it. Then after 3 minutes, you can say, well, make a pair of 4. They exchange again. And then after 2 minutes, so this all takes 12 minutes, I think, then you can have this group discussion or group dialogue of what has been discussed or what has been talked about. The 1, 2 for all structure, you can read it on this website. I like to do it in people also because people are more easy to talk in little groups than in a big group. The last one I will want to show you is the MAD-T. Perhaps you know this exercise. MAD-T, I don't know why they call it MAD-T, but well, it's just the name of it. Also inviting all voices in the room. So you make 2 circles of people. People are standing in the inner circle and people are standing in the outer circle. Then they make a pair of 2. And then every time there is a question, they discuss. So it could be used as a check-in. So the question could be, what motivates you to be here today, you know? And then they talk for 1.5 minutes with each other about why they are today here in this training session. It could also be a topic. What do you think about education? Or what do you think about what we are improving at this moment at school? So they talk with each other, everyone can talk, and after 2 minutes you stop the talkings in pairs, and then you can have a short group discussion, and then the inner circle is moving 2 persons clockwise to find a new partner, and then you put the second question. Then the same is happening, and after that you can do it for the 3rd time, 3rd question, and with an end discussion. And the good thing is that, again, everyone is active, everyone can talk. It's very easy to organize, and that's what I'm doing in my work, trying to invite every voice in the room to be active. Meanwhile, I walk through these people when they are talking with each other, because then I can listen to what they are talking about, and then I can use it, of course, to talk about it when we have the whole group discussion with each other. I will stop the sharing. Okay. Because we are heading to 8:30 in the Netherlands. And I could go on for hours, I think, to talk more and more about these activities. Perhaps I have made you more curious about this work. And I also hope that you enjoyed this for today. When you want to hear more, please send an email. And I give Ken, I think, the word to close the session. And after it, Alex will take over for some practical things. So thank you for being here this evening. Thank you very much. Ken, you are unmuted. Sorry, Ken.
And we can't hear you.
Yeah, this is just to say thank you so much, Loek. It's been illuminating, helpful in so many ways, and I think you would certainly be open if people would like to write to you. Many of them would like to see your slides, and that would be very helpful. And there'll be opportunities within the Taos Commons for further discussion on this and related issues. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And yes, I put a few resources, a few links in the chat. So the recording of this will be available in the Commons. And you can join our new self-paced course that is now available. We have another course that starts next month, Introduction to Social Construction. This is all available in the chat and in the comments. And of course, feel free to email us with any questions or comments. So thank you so much for coming. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon or evening. See you next time. Bye-bye.